Hi, Natalie. Welcome to the show. How are
Hi,
you?
Rosie. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely loved our last conversation. I'm so excited to chat more with you today.
Yeah, me too. And I think we should say for those people that are listening that didn't see our Instagram, it was so frustrating. I think we were quite close to the end of an amazing conversation around music and dance and embodiment. And then I don't know what happened with there was something with my phone. I think it pinged up with like a low battery thing, and then it just Instagram lost it and we lost that whole conversation. Which is so frustrating, but it means that it was a great chance for the two of us to really get to know one another, and then kind of we can almost pick up where we left off with this podcast, which is
Yes.
great. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there's definitely it wasn't a wasted opportunity. It's just a shame it wasn't able to be shared with more people. So, and also I should say, in the time that we last spoke, you've got married. So
Oh, I did. That's
congratulations.
true. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, it was such a fun day.
Oh, incredible. Where did you get married? Was it in Spain?
It was, yeah. We got married just outside of Madrid. So my now husband, which is still funny to say that after so long of calling someone your boyfriend. Yeah, so my husband is from Madrid, so and we live here. So yeah, we got married here. And also I'm just such a sun worshipper. I wanted guaranteed sunshine on my wedding day. So we're like, Spain is a good option.
Yeah. And also, I forget, do you live in Spain?
Yes, yeah. So I've been here for 9 years
Yeah.
now. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
definitely home. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, incredible. So, I mean, kind of the listeners that are listening or watching that don't know anything about you and your background, just kind of, tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Okay, so my background is mainly in dance. That's what I studied at university. I studied contemporary dance, and then I went on to dance and teach professionally, but that was actually in Latin dance styles, salsa and samba. And then much later on, when I was like, yeah, mid to late 20s, I picked up ballet again, which I'd done as a very young girl, and trained in that then very seriously, and now I teach ballet. So that's my like dance story. And then also I am a life coach, so that has been also more recent in my journey, but it feels incredibly aligned, and I'm very grateful that I finally given myself permission to follow that calling, which I, if I'm honest with myself, has always been there. And now I get to do both things, which is amazing. And yeah, so like in the middle of that journey, I also decided to move to Spain, which was in and of
Wow.
itself a very interesting, informative, and strengthening experience, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, what a great way to sum it up. So I'd love to know more about, how did the life coaching come about out of this dance world? And you said kind of you feel that it had always been there. How do the two
Yes.
link up?
Yeah. So it really started, I think. So I've always been interested in personal development. One of my like kind of mottos is learning for life. And that's something that I'm passionate about. But in terms of, very specifically the personal development stuff, it actually came originally from being acquainted with Marie Forleo's work. And I found her because I was running my own dance classes, and I was like, I want to be a little bit of a better entrepreneur because I feel like I'm not very good at it. So that was actually originally how I kind of got more into that space. And what happened really was just as I got more into it, and as I listened to more interviews, and as I watched more videos, and as I read more books, I was like, wow, this stuff really works. I feel it working. I see the actual changes like in myself, in how I feel, in my relationships, in my relationship to myself as a dancer, to my work, to everything. And I was like, wow, this stuff is super powerful. Because I'm big on implementation, probably, as a dancer, I always want to see things physically manifest as well. So I was, quite quick, I guess, on that side of things to start implementing. And at some point, I just as a dance teacher, I know how valuable it is to study something, to teach it as a deeper understanding for yourself. And so I decided to do certificates in life coaching. At that point, not 100% sure that actually I wanted to, dedicate my life to being a life coach. But I was just like, if I can get a deep enough understanding to teach this stuff, it's going to help me. So I did that. And, this, I don't know if you want to like go into this next story, but just as a very quick version, from there, after I'd finished my certificates, I did a few free sessions in Madrid, and then I actually got some one-to-one clients from doing those, and everything kind of was flowing very beautifully. And then lockdown happened, and that was the moment when all of the stuff that I'd worked on in myself, like the self-doubt and the self-criticism and the self-judgment, kind of like came back full force in that time, because it was just like, for people who are very active and kind of doers and, very kind of movement motivated people, or results motivated people, that time was like a really weird time. At least I found it a weird time. And so I doubted myself. I stopped doing sessions. I was like, what am I doing? Who am I kidding? Like, the imposter syndrome kicked in big time. And so I kind of stopped for a little while, and then did more work on myself, and especially around perfectionism, which I'd done some work on before, but I realized that was really kicking in again. So I went back to working on that in myself, and then I was able to come back to coaching with like a fresh outlook, and just feeling really excited about giving myself full permission to show up there to support other people through what I'd been through.
Yeah, I mean, there's two like major things from there. One is showing that, although you're a life coach, that doesn't mean that you have everything together and you are always, on top of everything and feeling in control. I mean, especially in a pandemic, no one can, I don't think anyone felt in control in that time. But also, just it shows that you're human, like for your clients or for anyone that you're speaking to on social media, to kind of resonate with that, is that like, okay, yeah, we get it. She's also human, and she's also doing all of this inner work, and that never stops, no matter how many certificates we have. And I'm like, I love to achieve things, so I'm constantly doing certificates and courses and to get my little piece of paper, but then you never stop. That doesn't mean that now that you've got this piece of paper, that's it, you're now proficient in this thing.
Absolutely.
The other thing that came up of what you were talking about, you mentioned about perfectionism. Now, that's such a huge thing, in the dance world, in the music world. As athletes, we all struggle to a certain extent with perfectionism. So you said like you did a lot of work, you took a step back from kind of everything else, and you did a lot of work on perfectionism, which was something that had been recurring for you. Would you mind kind of explaining a bit more about what kind of things did you do to work on perfectionism?
Yes. This is probably one of the biggest things that I will probably, like you said, you never even like cure these things, but I will manage it for the rest of my life, probably, because it was one of the things that was so deeply ingrained, I realized. And so also, just to preface what I'm going to talk about now, is that perfectionism is something that we really think is serving us. So it's not one of the first things that we, I think, look to change when we go into the personal development stuff. Like, for me, the initial stuff was that I wanted to like improve my relationship with my now husband, and those are kind of more obvious things. Like, I wanted to become less jealous, and I wanted to become more understanding and like less demanding of him. And then eventually, when you get into all that stuff, you realize that is because of the perfectionism. Like, that's actually the root. And there are other things, and there were other things that were difficult when I was growing up, and especially around my teenage years, that all led to this. But really, it was all of these things were leading me back, or at least linked to perfectionism. I started to realize, put these pieces together. And I think lots of us, this is how I've kind of conceptualized it in my head now, in a more broader way for everyone who relates to this, which is that this perfectionist tendencies begin with just wanting to do our best, which is a noble and a good thing that I think we can celebrate, wanting to do our best. I think the problem, the mismatch, comes from, in some ways, an education system, and also just a culture and a society that says there's a right and wrong way to do things. And we also start to really attach to the outcomes of what we're doing. So like we get the gold star, and then it becomes about the gold star and not about the thing that we were doing. And so that process is slow and quiet, and it can go unnoticed, I think, for a long time. And also then, you know, if you're someone that's also a hard worker, and these tendencies tend to go together, you know, hardworking, overachieving, perfectionist, and certainly in my case they do. And when you start to then attach your identity to the things that you've achieved, so they're not things that you've only done and you've enjoyed doing them, but they're actually who you are, then it starts to get a little tricky. And so this for me was also, I believe, another reason why I was really called back to ballet, because ballet is something that is very much, you know, the pursuit of perfection really is what it is. And there is beauty to be found in that. And there's, you know, we can celebrate, you know, the aesthetics of ballet and the athleticism of ballet and all of these things. But the process, I realized eventually that actually perfectionism is not the only way to achieve things, but when you've done it that way, you think it is the only way to achieve things. And so for me, the journey really started probably in the dance space, and then I realized that it kind of trickled out to the rest of my life. But it was those moments where I was looking around at other people in my class, or when I would watch World Ballet Day, when they would take the cameras into the dance studio, and actually you got to see these dancers not on stage but in the studio. How are they? How do they talk to each other? Are they smiling? Are they not smiling? All these things. And I actually started to notice that someone's dance ability didn't actually always correlate to how hard on themselves they were, to how critical of themselves they were, to how judgmental of themselves they were. And actually, there were some dancers who seemed to come at it from a place of joy and a place of progress rather than results. And that really was like, wow. And when I was also seeing that in the dance studio, it's very interesting as well living in Spain, because there are cultural differences around these things as well. And I would say in general, Spain is less of a perfectionist culture than other places. I mean, within every culture, you're going to get people, you know, who slide all the way along that spectrum. But it kind of made me think, well, what am I actually doing if I'm not enjoying this? Because at that point, there was a point where I also had to make a decision to, am I going to pursue this professionally? Like, do I want to become, you know, a corps de ballet dancer in one of the smaller companies in Spain? By this point, I was much older, so I wasn't going to ever become a prima or anything like that. But there was a point where I had to also just acknowledge to myself that, Natalie, this isn't what you want. And deep down, you know, it's not what you want. So what are you trying to prove here? Who are you trying to prove it to? And if you've not got this time like a finish line or a result of getting into that company where you're going to have that moment of celebration, the dopamine hit, all of those things, then what are you doing? Really, what is this? And so if you're not going into the studio and enjoying each class, you know, really enjoying it and not berating yourself and getting angry when you fall out of a pirouette and all of these things, then what actually are you doing it for? And that was where I started to be able to like tease apart the perfectionism and the enjoyment part, which I think for a lot of us who are either, you know, musicians, artists, athletes, all people who at some point that thing that you do was your deepest passion and brought you so much joy. And then somewhere along the way, if perfectionism gets involved at some point, that starts to take the joy away. And that was really, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying that, like, this was really something that hit me, and I was like, wow. And now it's a choice, Natalie. Now it's a choice. How do you want to show up in the dance studio? How do you want to talk to yourself? How do you want to experience this thing that you say that you love? And so then that's where the empowerment comes back in, I think, because we tell ourselves as perfectionists a story of like, well, I'm a perfectionist, it keeps me in control and it keeps me like powerful, but it doesn't. It actually takes you out of your power. And when you let go of the perfectionism is when you get to step into it again.
Yeah, God, that was you saying about like you had goosebumps. That was really powerful. That I feel like I kind of lived those feelings with you. And actually, that was a big thing that came out while I was listening to you. You were explaining about, not being focused on the shiny gold star or the outcome, or and we get so outcome driven. And what if you get injured, or if your whole identity is the thing that you do, like you're an athlete or you're a dancer or whatever, then that can be so debilitating if an external thing means that you can't be fulfilling that. So something that I was thinking when you were talking was about Danielle Laporte's desire mapping. I don't know if you've come across
I
it.
haven't. I don't know
So
the design mapping. I know her, but I don't know that.
yeah, check her out. So yeah, I love Danielle Laporte. And again, I kind of came across her around the same time as I came across Marie Forleo as well. And the two of them, I mean, they're friends as well. So there's a few podcasts and videos with the two of them talking. But I'm a design map facilitator. And basically, design mapping is all around, like, instead of chasing the goal, you're chasing a feeling, so that you're then kind of focusing on the feelings on the journey to getting that goal, so that you don't think, well, I'm only going to feel the way I want to feel when I win the race, when I get into this dance school or whatever it is. That actually, if your core feelings are things like joy and love and connection, well, you can feel that way all the way along that journey. But it just takes time to work out what is the feeling that I'm chasing, because there's a feeling that you're chasing rather than like the outcome. It is the outcome, but it's what are you going to feel out of that outcome, which is so powerful. Yeah, I definitely say, like, check her out, the design mapping side. It's really great, and I found it's worked really well, especially in the kind of the sports world, looking at what's the feeling that you're trying to achieve and chase, and what's your purpose. You sort of touched upon it as well, is like, how do I want to show up in the world? Like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And your purpose isn't to win a race or whatever it is, to have a 7-figure business. Like, your purpose is so much deeper than that. It's like, have you, I think, was it a book? It was definitely a TED talk, Simon Sinek's.
Yes.
I
I've
can't
seen
remember
it.
what it's
Yeah,
called. Something about
he's
the
great.
power of why, or start with your why. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Whether you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, or parent, or whatever, you don't have to have this kind of I can't think of the word, but like high performance side. It doesn't have to be in that space. But yeah, starting with your why, and actually, why are you here? What's your purpose? And that's so powerful. And then you can connect with that regardless of whether you get into the dance school, or your business hits 7 figures, or whatever your goal is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you start to realize as well, as you go through and you see other people on like similar journeys, that it's actually much more about the perseverance of it and you sticking with it. Because as a perfectionist as well, I don't know if other people can relate to this, but I've sometimes let stuff go if I didn't feel immediately like I was kind of naturally talented, whatever that means, at that thing. Or getting really disheartened, or like I've changed jobs a lot. I've changed, as I've said, like dance styles a lot. I've changed things a lot. And I think there's something to do with that as well. And what you're saying now about like connecting to your why, that will keep you much steadier on the path, I feel like, than flitting between or chopping and changing. And there's nothing wrong with being multi-passionate, as Marie talks about. And that's definitely, probably both of us fall into that category. But there is a difference though between like drawing on different passions and being able to do different things, and actually just not committing to your why, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if it comes under that why, yes, you can have, like you say, about being multi-passionate. That's a great term. You can have all these different interests and passions, and have multiple businesses or whatever it is, but it's so much easier, or it feels, I think you mentioned the word flow right at the beginning of this. You probably feel like you're much more in a state of flow if it comes under this why.
Yeah,
it's just you kind of, it just, I mean, alignment, I use the word alignment all the time, but things do just align, and you know the things that you can say no to right now, and the things that you're going to say yes to and will really make you feel good because they're fulfilling this mission.
yeah, I love that. And I love the concept of alignment. You know, first of all, I know that word originally in the dance context. And now, of course, it's been talked about a lot in the kind of life journey context, I guess. But I always found it so interesting. So like in contemporary dance, for example, or in contact improv, etc., you have this concept of alignment, like find the place where your skeleton is like in the right kind of alignment. I was going to try and use a different word, but you know, in the right structural order, that things become much easier rather than relying always on force and control and strength. And yes, you can create strength around, you know, the correct alignment of your skeleton or finding that counterbalance. But you will also find that it's so much easier once you're in that correct alignment. And, you know, there's so much, I'm so much into embodiment, but there really is so much between, you know, just how you show up physically, how you align your body physically, you know, posture, things like that, how you align your movements, and actually just how you show up in the world on an energetic level and an emotional level. So I really think like all of these things are really interlinked as well.
Yeah, it hadn't dawned on me that, like, of course in the dance world alignment is physically, mentally, so that's definitely kind of where I'm looking at it. I was thinking, you know, I personally struggle with the word balance, and like, you know, we need to have a work-life balance, we need to have more balance in our life, because actually there, especially as a creative person, there are times when one thing is going to take more energy than another, and to have kind of balance it's a very difficult thing to feel that everything is balanced, or, you know, your time is spread evenly between everything that you do, because actually in reality that's not really true. So alignment was more of the thing, and a lot of it is about that feeling of, you know, feeling that I could be spending a lot more time on my business or my PhD or my workouts or whatever it is, or family really need me, like the summer holidays, I spend so much more time with the family, less time on my business, but I still feel in alignment because I put the steps in place that I know the business can be taken care of for 6 weeks or whatever it is. There's no balance there because one of them, the family side, the scales are, you know, tipped right down, and the other side is up. So that was kind of what I was resonating with as well.
Yeah, I love that. I guess like I actually would use balance and alignment somewhat interchangeably, and perhaps because of the dance training thing, but you're so right. If you think about balance as a scale, like as a scale, like a two-sided scale, then that becomes very static. But because for me balance is something that's always active, then you get the choice of like bringing yourself back, and you always, especially in a dance, like you're always moving, like every step you take you need to refine the balance. And so in a way that is alignment, right? So I guess if I said balance before, I guess I'm kind of using those two things interchangeably.
And it's so, and this is why it's great to have these conversations, because it's really down to perception. And that's, you know, I'm about to go off on a tangent, but it does kind of interlink. Is about, you know, there's a lot around, particularly around mindset, and I use this a lot with music, but is around, we can't control like outside events or, you know, what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it and how we perceive the events. And it's kind of just a case in point, isn't it? It's like certain words will resonate with people in a different way, and other words, you know, it's really about our perception and our own understanding and feeling with that term.
It's so true.
It's interchangeable because it's just it depends on what resonates with the individual, which is great. So in terms of you and thinking about sort of alignment in your life, I guess, where do you find moments of alignment, or what does alignment look like to you?
This is such an interesting question, and I haven't, like, I know you warned me that this question was coming.
I did. It's a big question.
And I still couldn't find, like, you know, a very specific answer. And so I was thinking about it, and perhaps what I'm going to allow myself to do is ask myself, what is it for a balance for me? Because that is how I like actually think about it. And seeing as we've kind of established that these two things are very similar. And so something that's really helped me with balance is checking in and actually being accountable to myself, because I'm like quite a creative person. I'm definitely a big picture thinker person. I'm not so much down in the details and into strategy and all that kind of stuff. Some people are amazing at that. That's not my talent. Doesn't mean I can't work on it, and I have, like, as I'm gonna about to explain. But something that definitely helped me to, I guess, keep an alignment or to find more of an active balance is actually checking in and being like, not only checking in mentally or like in my thoughts, like am I on the right path, but checking in with my body. And this will really come down to embodiment, which is what has been the thing that has allowed me to really get into alignment, is through embodiment. And again, so for me, the balance doesn't come by having all of my days look the same. My days look very, very different. Some days I'm teaching, some days I'm not teaching, some days some days I go for a long walk, some days I do a meditation, some days I eat really healthy, some days I indulge. So it's really, I guess, about, for me, it's like about the overall checking in of like, okay, how was this month, or how was this quarter, and doing a little bit of, you know, just real self-awareness, and not getting into denial or kidding myself that I've done more than I have, or that I've also done less than I have, because sometimes I'll do that as well and not actually celebrate the steps, because I'm still
that's
that
the perfectionist side.
Yeah, still looking for the big win.
Yeah.
So I think that has been something that's really helped me. But I realized for other people, like, that'll be the thing that's already in place. And actually the things that might be more potent will be the embodiment practices and the time for creativity and creating the space to actually say, well, what is in alignment with me? You know, what really is that thing that, wow, what was it? I've just finished a book called Recapture the Rapture, which is amazing. And he said in it something about, and I feel like it's alignment, but it's also related to purpose. Oh, that was it. He said, find the intersection between your trauma and your talent. And that's the place where you're really going to, I guess, like, hit on that alignment or the purpose, because it's that way that, you know, our trauma is the way that we actually really feel life in those moments. Like, what is that thing that really is, like, the sadness is there, the connection to my own humanity is there, and then at the same time, what am I good at? So for me, it wouldn't be any use me being like, right, well, I want to, you know, help people with strategy, because that is not my talent. And I also don't believe in, you know, the whole concept necessarily of genius and these things. I think, yeah, there are some things which perhaps we're better able to get better at, but there's work involved in that as well, or there's alignment involved in that. So that was not a very succinct or clear answer, but those are just some jumbled thoughts.
No, this helps. And this is the thing is, you know, I think we're all like grappling with this as well, is we don't often take the time to stop and kind of ask ourselves these questions. You know, what does alignment look like to me? How does it feel? And something that came out, so you said about you know, taking stock, like, yeah, just taking a step back and actually reflecting on the month or the quarter or however long. And you mentioned about, you know, your days, no 2 days look the same. You're kind of doing like different things. Do you still feel in alignment with different elements going on?
Yes, I think I feel more in alignment with different things going on, because now that, again, coming back to what you said about connecting with the why, for a long time I was really like boxing myself into specific identities, so like the dancer identity, and I had to, you know, reevaluate, well, what does that mean now that I'm coaching, and actually I'm only teaching dance, I'm not performing anymore, you know, so what does that look like? But when it comes to, like, you know, my why now, especially after I think letting go of the perfectionism, like, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. I'm not even trying to prove things to myself. I'm just trying to serve in the best way that I can. And that piece actually makes me be the best version of myself anyway. So instead of trying to go there first and be like, let me make Natalie into a really good person, which was like what I was always trying to do before, now I'm like, how do I help other people in the way that is that intersection between my trauma and my talent? And that in itself is molding me into like a better version of who I will become, who I want to be. I mean, different ways to phrase that, I guess. But yeah, and I think that thing about alignment as well, I've just accepted also that alignment doesn't necessarily mean clarity. There are moments of clarity along the journey of being aligned with, I guess, like our purpose, and that will shift and change more or less for different people. For me, it looks like it's going to be shifting and changing quite a lot. But I love that. I'm someone who always seeks out change. Like, you know, I chose to move to Spain without speaking the language, without knowing a single person in Madrid. And I was just like, I want to live in Madrid. Bye. So, you know, for other people, it will look different, because that kind of fast pace of change is not something that everyone enjoys. So, and that's also in alignment with you. And so that really acceptance, and this was also, you have to let go perfectionism to really honor that everybody's alignment is going to look so different, and they're all valuable, and there is no one ideal, and there is no one perfect, and actually just celebrating everyone's journey to what is their purpose. And that also gives you such a freedom, because then you don't have to do everything. This is what I realized, like, oh, I don't have to be everything and help everyone in every way, and, you know, try to be, you know, all the things that I used to try and be, and like have the perfect dancer body, and have, you know, this face, and have this, whatever, all of the other things that I was trying to achieve, instead of being like, I can help in this one way or these two ways, and that's enough, because there are other people doing other things. And then it's about the community and the collaboration rather than competition, which is the place that I used to live from, and I used to be proud of it even. But now I'm like, well, I can compete inside the parameters of a game, and that's fun, or, you know, like a sport, something like that, that's fun. But when it comes to real life, I don't want to live like that. I want to live in a place of collaboration and appreciation for other people's alignment and what that looks like for them. And if we can, you know, like we're doing right now, Rosie, like, you know, I honor yours and you honor mine, and that's such a beautiful place to be, and we get to even help each other in that process. So yeah, that feels more in alignment.
Yeah, amazing. And that's the thing is, yeah, alignment doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to mean clarity or simplicity. For some of us, that's what it will mean. You know,
Yeah.
we want to kind of work minimal hours, or we want to have a stable 9 to 5 job, because we know that then we've got stability, and we can come home in the evening and we can switch off, because we don't have to be running a business or spinning plates or whatever. Whereas for others, myself included, I like to have variety.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, I seek out change, even just kind of just small things, you know, seeking out change, kind of like challenging yourself, but not necessarily in that perfectionist way, but more of a like personal growth way, you know, knowing that you're constantly working on things that are going to help you to grow, that you can help others. And that's, yeah. And for me, alignment is very much similar to what you were saying about, you know, doing different things. And maybe that's the creative side as well, is that I seek out creativity throughout my day in various forms. And some days it might just be designing on Canva, you know, that day that's ticking my creative streak. That's all I need. And other days it might be, actually making music, listening to music. But I mean, even being an entrepreneur, you know, that's can be a really creative endeavor. So for me, that's definitely more alignment as well. It's kind of no 2 days looking the same, having that kind of difference, meeting new people like this, you know, it's fantastic. And connecting on social media is wonderful, as much as there are downsides to social media, like you were saying about, you know, realizing that you don't need to have it all or be doing this. You know, often social media can make us feel like, oh, they're doing this, and it's hard, because you could wake up first thing in the morning and like you're just bombarded with all of these beautiful photos and people, you know, running huge businesses while also having a family, and they kind of just seem to have it all because that's what they're deciding to portray on social media. But equally that there are, you know, huge positives. It's just kind of controlling it. I've found, especially Instagram, there's been some massive positives. Like that's where we met each other, and through Boss Babes, I think, so it was a Facebook group. You know, there's more and more connections, more than ever, and then it's just finding a way to manage it so that you don't just suddenly feel overwhelmed, and then I'm going to keep saying the word, but out of alignment. Because it's so easy to then kind of, you know, you start looking at other people's lives and comparing your own to theirs. and then you can feel out of alignment with that sense of self, and we're all on our own little journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say one thing on this topic of, you know, like the comparison on social media and stuff? A big part for me of like being in alignment is coming back into alignment with my nature and not my narratives. And for me, that means like looking back at what are human beings built to do, and how are we built, and what does that mean? And like, I absolutely love evolutionary theory, etc. My master's thesis was about the evolution of music and dance. And so for me, it's like that part of aligning, not just with what I think I should be doing, or what the world tells me I should be doing, or what the world tells me is valuable, but especially when it comes to health, is not just the narratives, but actually the nature. So just taking it back to basics sometimes of like, is this what my ancestors 50,000 years ago would have been eating, would have been doing, would have been, like in community, all of these things. And I think this is the really weird thing about social media. When I think about like that is how human beings evolved in a group, in communities, with accountability to each other, but also with extreme transparency, in the way that you can't just tell another member of your tribe, oh yeah, my life is really good, when that member can clearly see you spent like the last 5 nights crying yourself to sleep or whatever, or telling them, look at my body, look how healthy I look, and then at the same time they see like you're having diarrhea, like whatever, you know, just these things that like we take it so for granted that what people present is what's happening, and it's just not, it's really not. And so there is such a we live in a weird world now where all of these things are very separate, where human beings have always been, you know, together with at least the people that are in our close community. And so I feel like that's where a little bit of the mismatch comes in. But then also, as you said, Rosie, like the amazing, you know, the internet and things, this gives us a chance to expand our tribe to like the whole world, which is absolutely incredible. So there's positives and negatives about these things, but for me it's just like remembering and coming back to the truth of like at least what my body is trying to achieve, and how I can support my body and how I can support my mind, and getting out of the narratives of all the things that we should be doing and the ways that are correct and that are incorrect and all of this stuff, and just kind of undoing the stories and coming back to, and it's not exactly the truth, because evolution is also, you know, very much influenced by stories, even within the science of it. So it's not like I'm saying our nature is truth and everything else is a story, but just unpicking that a little bit and like exploring it.
Yeah, that's so true. And actually, well, you know, it definitely is linked, but obviously you've been mentioning about the body, and I just suddenly thought, you know, do you, in terms of kind of talking about like overwhelm and maybe knowing, you know, at what point do you just turn off social media for a bit because actually it's just too overwhelming, and instead listen to your body? And you know, if your body's telling you to slow down, as a dancer, this feels like it might be a really silly question to ask, and I pretty much know the answer, but do you feel that kind of maybe dancers listen, like you listen to your body a lot, in terms of like you listen to what your body's telling you, whether to slow down, or do you feel it could be the other way?
It is not a silly question, and the answer is yes and no. Totally depends on the person, and I've lived on the other side of that line. The other side of that line is encouraged, especially in professional training, because you're in pain, don't listen to that, keep on dancing. Your toes are bleeding from point shoes, that doesn't matter, you keep dancing, because, you know, and so there is definitely disembodiment that happens with dancers, even though you're using your body every day, and you become much more attached to the body that you see of yourself in the mirror than to your actual body. And so you're trying to manipulate your body into shapes, you're trying to overcome like the pain or the tiredness, all of these things, and within that process you start to disembody and you start to lose the connection with actually your body. Like I lived through that. I lived for quite a long time not listening to my body. This is a whole other story, but like I suffered with endometriosis, and I learned to heal, you know, in the heal it again is probably something that I'll always manage rather than curing, but I've learned to heal that by listening to my body, to checking in, to releasing the tension in my abdominals, because that was always something that as a dancer, you know, you hold everything in, you keep strong. And I just never released it. Like I literally just like would walk around the rest of my day clenching and being like tight and toned, and never giving my womb space to just breathe and to be soft. And so, yeah, there's lots and lots of these things within the dance world that would seem like we should be connected to our bodies because we use them. But it's using it as a tool. It's using it as an instrument and not being connected to it, not being in it, not being responsive to it, not listening when it's like I'm on the verge of an injury, or I'm on the verge of, you know, like I'm very tired, or all of this stuff. And there's a lot of work to do there, you know, in the professional realm. But I feel like it's very interesting because dance at the moment is being evoked a lot in the personal development space, at least in the circles that I'm in, perhaps not everywhere, but as this kind of fix all thing. But as with anything in life, and probably the same with music, it's like, it's how you use it. It's not the thing itself. It's not dance itself that is going to heal humanity because dance can, as I've just explained, like dance can harm people if you're doing it when you're tired or you're injured. Dance can also create more tribalism. It can separate people instead of being this thing that like you're, you know, and we see that with elite art forms where it's like, I've been part of the adult ballet community, but there's a lot of people in the ballet world that don't agree that that should even be a thing, and that dance should just be for the professionals or for the little girls who want to later be professionals. And if you're not doing it perfectly, then you shouldn't be doing it. So there's also just so much around dance that needs to be broken down, and we can't kind of big brushstroke dance and music are the answer for everything. We need to be very careful about how we're using that. And yes, it's so powerful, but that's exactly why it's even more important to be very aware in how we're practicing dance and music, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's so true. And so, yeah, so it wasn't a silly question at all, actually, because in my mind, I was thinking, oh, she's about to say, well, of course, as a dancer, of course, we listen to our body. But no, it's so complex. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's the same with athletes. You know, you push yourself. And I've spoken with friends that are like Team GB athletes, and they were saying about they really struggled to take rest days and to take rest seriously, because you feel like if you're resting, then your competitors are training, and that means that they're going to win the gold and not you. Whereas it's completely the other way. If you don't rest, you're going to burn out, you're going to get an injury, and then, you know, your dreams of winning whatever it is, you're not going to get there because you've then kind of got an injury out of your own because you didn't want to stop. And it's that perfectionist side. And overtraining, you know, it's definitely not one of those where you can, and music to a certain extent, but it's definitely more in the physical world. It's not something where you can keep training and you will get better and better and you'll continue to get better. There comes a time when your body just kind of can't take any more, and then you set yourself back, you know, like right back if you get an injury.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I personally have been on that thing of like not being able to rest, or if I force myself to rest, not enjoying it or not being there mentally. And so that, as well as the physical part of like your body needs to rest, but also can you mentally allow yourself to do it and not resent the times when you're doing it? That was like a big thing for me as well. But yeah, you're so right. And it's having the faith, that leap of faith. It's almost like I was saying before about the perfectionism versus joy approach, and believing that you can still get results. Is that leap of faith again between, if I allow myself to rest, I've never done it that way. What if everything falls apart? What if all of a sudden I lose my speed or my power or my agility or whatever it is? But you have to, like, there's always a moment of the leap of faith, the discomfort of trying something out. And the amazing thing is that once you've been training in something for a long time, like the more that I do rest, the more that I'm like, wow, my body's amazing. It remembers, like it can come back super quickly, but you need to, it's almost like we have to have the evidence of ourselves doing that before we can believe it. But at some point there comes the leap of faith to actually try it.
And leap of faith both ways, isn't it? You know, leap of faith to step out of the comfort zone, whether that's resting is one regard, or that's actually kind of leap of faith and just going for something and trying it. It's true. There's kind of, I forget the term around in discomfort. There's I'm going to say opportunity. I'm not quite sure if that's the right thing, but that sounds fine for now. Because it is that kind of, taking that leap of faith. You know, we've got to feel a bit uncomfortable. And at times that uncomfort comes from just stopping.
Yes.
And because we're not used to it. So this has been such a really insightful conversation. Thank you so much. I think everyone listening will really resonate with you as well. You know, whether we're dancers or not, or creatives or not at all. I think everything that we've been talking about can just be, it's relatable, isn't it? To any of us just living life and everything that comes with it. So
thank you so much
for coming on. And where can people find you? So if you want to share a website or social media links.
My favorite place is Instagram, just because it means that I get to connect with people. I also have YouTube channels. I'm still divided into two people at the moment. So there's Natalie Dancer, which is all the ballet stuff, but really my main place is Natalie Orr, which is my full name, ORR. So that's where I would love to connect with people on Instagram, because then I get, we can DM, we can chat. That's the best place.
Oh, that's wonderful. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Natalie.
Thank you, Rosie.
And I'm sure we'll have you back again on the show sometime soon, because it's just amazing following your journey at the moment. And we're so in sync.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you, Rosie.
Brilliant. Thank you.